Talks, an exciting and riveting, scientifically engaging Chip Talks. Aren't you guys excited this morning? Hopefully, we're going to be able to tell some truths. We're going to be able to get to the bottom of some things. We're going to look at some things in a little bit different way, in a little bit deeper way than maybe you've looked at them before. We're going to talk about fasting today, and fasting is important. So we're going to get into all that and the importance of fasting, kind of what it means, perhaps a little bit way to think about fasting, and then we'll get into some actual do's and don'ts, some things that you need to do if you're going to consider fasting. We're mainly going to talk about intermittent fasting, but once we get to the nutrition part, I'll talk a little bit more about, fasting, like if you're doing more than a day fast and things like that. So we'll get right into it here. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you guys this morning. You're looking good. You're looking happy. You're looking healthier than you were before you started listening to Chip Talks, which is good. That's what we want to have happen. So what I try to do in this show is give you guys a lot of knowledge. Again, knowledge is of God. I shouldn't charge you for my knowledge. Let's just put it that way. So the knowledge that I get, I'm going to give to you. We might choose to build a service around that or another way to try to help you with what we're doing, kind of make it easy for you. But I'm always going to give you the knowledge I've got. So there you go. So let's dive right in. There's a presentation. Good. Okay, so we're going to talk about fasting do's and don'ts. A little bit just deeper dive into fasting today. So it doesn't really matter what your goals are. You may have a very severe disease. And if you do, fasting is a very, very good way to help your body fight that disease. Our bodies, the more stress we put under them, kind of the stronger that they get, which is really cool. If we shove them full of bad nutrients and don't take very good care of ourselves, and we're not so good. But anyway, under stress, we seem to get healthier, which is interesting. So if I sort of restrict food from you, which is kind of what we're talking about in fasting, or if I don't give you enough food, again, that seems to make us better somehow. So it's kind of cool. But it doesn't really matter if your goals are to fight disease. If you're doing this for religious reasons, you still need the same information. If you're doing it for weight loss, a lot of people will fast and intermittent fast for weight loss. But frankly, this is good for everyone to do for health. And we'll talk about kind of some of those things as we talk about some of the concepts here. But another reason that this is good to do is we all have an addiction to food. How many of you guys think you could go a day without food? It might be uncomfortable. We all get that. But we somehow have this idea in our head that we can't go more than, 4 or 5 hours without a meal. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And so we all need to kind of break that. And one way to break that is by fasting and intermittent fasting. Okay, so, you hear me talk a lot. You will continue to hear me talk a lot about circadian rhythms, about the sun, about our relationship to the sun, about how that ties into our relationship with God, all of that, right? But that just interweaves through human health, and it's, I would be remiss to not talk about it, and I would be remiss to not point it out to you. So you run by the sun every day, okay? And so our bodies go through this very predictable symphony of function throughout a day, okay? We're like this says, so let's see, let's pick a time. So early in the morning, our blood pressure begins to rise at 6:45 a.m. Melatonin secretion stops. Our bowels start moving, in the morning. We have high testosterone secretion. So again, we're getting ready to be alert and up and muscles ready and all that. And then we so our best coordination time, 2 o'clock, fastest reaction time. So again, when should we go out and hunt? In the afternoon, it looks like. That's we're good at running too. Greatest, cardiovascular efficiency and muscle strength. And then we kind of switch. It looks like our blood. I can't talk this morning. our blood pressure begins to rise. I'm excited to tell you guys about this. And our temperature begins to rise, our body temperature. And that means we're getting ready to process, probably. And again, it looks like, that's kind of a good time to eat is, somewhere after, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that looks like when our body's sort of preparing itself to kind of calm down and begin a lot of internal processes. But anyway, when we eat, we disrupt this process. And that's sort of the thing that I wanted to point out is we have this nice symphony of process. And again, there's, we're focusing on endocrine at some of these times. We're focusing on immune at some of these times. And those are different, okay? So it's not like we just do all this at once. There's a timing associated with when we do things. So when we eat, we interrupt that timing. There's nothing that says eat now on this chart, right? So when we eat, we interrupt this process and these processes, and our body has to stop doing what it's doing and focus on what we just did. And it takes a lot of energy to do that, okay? So, and again, we do that for 5 hours after we eat. So if you eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and that snack before bed, you're doing nothing. None of this, okay? But basically just processing your food. Here's another look at the kind of same thing, but more along the lines of hormones and kind of steroid-y things. But you can kind of see how we change and how our bodies focus on different things at different times of the day. And again, this is without eating, okay? When we eat, this gets disrupted. So this gets messed up. We've got to focus on eating or dealing with the meal, rather than kind of the symphony that our bodies want to play every day. So it's eating is like, playing horrible violin music in the middle of your symphony, okay? So it's something that we need to do very intentionally. And right now, we don't at all. We're gluttonous pigs. We eat way too much and way too often. And again, we're disrupted, and we pay a price for that physically. All right. So do bacteria have circadian rhythm? They absolutely do. They're clever little devils, and they understand your circadian rhythm, and they kind of have an anti-circadian rhythm so that they use our stuff against us. And these are the, smarter bacteria, the more advanced bacteria. And, they understand how to basically use our forces against us. So if we have a bacterial infection, and I guarantee you have a bacterial infection. We all do. But if we have a bacterial infection, then we need to understand this if we're going to fight and defeat the bacterial infection. Because the bacteria are smart. They understand how you work, and they can move around and kind of proliferate by understanding your rhythms and your cycles. Again, when you eat, you just create a tremendous opportunity for them because you kind of drop all your cycles and all your defenses through these cycles. So, again, eating should be intentional. Now, as to this circadian, what percentage of our genetic expression, let's say, is associated with circadian rhythms? So this on and off that happens every day. Well, you can see that in kind of the reddish color there. So it's a pretty significant part of, our genetic pool. It's actually about 20% of our genes. So this is a little misleading in the total genetic pool, but it's a lot. And then the blue there is drug targets. So those are pharma, genetic drug targets. But you can see there, and then the third circle, the yellow, is genes associated with disease. So the 884, kind of in the middle of that circle there, that's in the middle of the yellow, blue, and red, that's how bad pharma is missing the mark on medication, because, again, if it matters when you take it. Your genes won't be expressed. 884 and 884 instances of pharma drugs, okay? So, again, they don't know everything. They think they do. Okay. When should we eat? Well, good luck with that one. To me, and I'm going to go back to this thing real quick. So to me, it's looking like, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon is our best time to eat, but that is far from established. That is absolute theory, based on my knowledge, but it's a pretty deep amount of knowledge. But that's still theory. This hasn't been established yet at all. We're still looking at all of these things. So if you're a mouse, again, mammals are a little bit different. You're not a mammal. You're not a beast of the earth. You're not a plant of the earth. You're something different. But if you were a beast of the earth, if you were a mammal, you kind of need to eat breakfast, it looks like. So dogs and mice and things like that will just naturally kind of eat in the morning, and that's to kind of re-energize them. You don't energize yourself in the way you think. You partially do through nutrients that you eat, but you also energize yourself in other ways that we don't understand or appreciate yet. Let's just put it that way. But look, there's that big sun right there in that picture. So anyway, that whole thing is, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Let's just say that. It's outside our Overton window just yet. But anyway, we energize ourselves in ways we don't know about. Yeah, let's just put it that way. But if you look at these graphs, you can see, so let's see, what are we looking at? ZT time, probably. So you can kind of see what your endocrine system does there at, wakey, which would be about O2. And then it increases in function and activity. So it's something that kind of right off the bat is going to engage. And then about, looks like 12 hours after you're awake, it will go down in function. So again, if you eat breakfast, you're going to disrupt your endocrine function. Your body temperature, again, has a nice rhythm to it. You're building metabolites, it looks like, sort of starting very early in the morning and then stopping at around noon. So again, that's another thing, that if you eat breakfast, you're going to disrupt both your endocrine system sort of function and your building of metabolites. So again, these are reasons not to eat in the morning. To me, it looks like we need to eat later in the day. Okay, so eating window and intermittent fasting. So when we talk about intermittent fasting and we talk about fasting, there's really two concepts to fasting. One is intermittent fasting. And they call that, if you're a mouse, they call that time-restricted feeding, which means that you're only going to eat in a certain window of the day, okay? And again, it's looking like advantageously that seems to be in the afternoon. Again, if you've got to eat lunch, you've got to eat lunch, but the more you can push that later in the day, that's looking to be more advantageous. I grabbed this graph from a Dr. Peterson, and again, Dr. Peterson has the right concept here, but he probably has the window wrong. So he's showing a window of 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. as a good eating window. I'd prefer that you move that much, much, much later into the afternoon and evening. But the idea is right here. So again, most of us, if you eat breakfast, if you eat lunch, if you eat dinner, if you eat a snack before bed, then your eating window is, 12, 16 hours, 14 hours, something like that. And what we're saying is you need to just close that eating window. So it's pretty easy to, when you first wake up, drink your coffee, that's fine. Just don't drink it with creamer or sugar. Drink your tea, just don't drink it with sugar. So again, light beverages are okay. And try to do nothing but do that, or drink water up until noon, eat your lunch, and then try to finish eating dinner about 6 to 8 o'clock, and don't eat after that. If you can do that, then you've done it. So you're eating in a 6 to 8 hour window. My wife and I have narrowed that down to really one meal, and we eat in about a 4-hour window. So, and again, that's more advantageous than eating in a 6 and an 8 hour window. Now, the reason for this, again, I've done many videos on this, but it's something called AMPK. And, when we eat, we go into this special state for 5 hours or so. And it's not advantageous. We drop our defenses to cancer. We drop our, immune system really during that time. And so if we eat in a large window, we're vulnerable all during that time, all during that window. If we cut our window, that's far better. Eating in a 4-hour window, 5 hours of process, that's 9 hours. I've got 15 hours of optimal function and optimal health in my body. And, that's what I want. That makes me a immune champion. That makes me able to fight disease, to fight cancer, to fight things like that. So there you go. Holly the bear. So let's sort of drill this in just a little bit more about these eating windows and how you can basically use this to control your weight, because Holly the bear does. So let me tell you kind of what Holly does and how she behaves throughout the year. So we all know bears get big and then they go into hibernation, right? Well, how do they control that? I mean, it doesn't just happen. A bear just doesn't magically get big in the winter. They have to do things to make that happen, right? And bears also have to be super lean in the spring and the summer because they move around a lot. So you can see the bear on the left, Holly on the left. She's lean, she's fit, and that's probably a summer, picture because you got running water. And then Holly on the right there, she's getting ready to go into hibernation. She's big. Well, she does this every year. How does she do it? Well, when she comes out of hibernation, again, she starts to eat. She'll only eat in a 4-hour window. Okay? She'll only eat for 4 hours a day. She might eat a jillion calories. She might eat all trucks full of fish during that 4 hours, but she's only going to eat for 4 hours. Because eating for 4 hours promotes leanness. It promotes lean body mass, muscle building, and all that. So again, you've got to eat the right aminos in order to build the muscles, but it promotes them. We'll talk about that in a second, but it promotes basically that activity. When Holly gets ready, and Holly will do that all through the spring and all through the summer. When Holly gets ready to put on weight, Holly does nothing but expand her eating window. That's all she does. She doesn't necessarily change her diet. I mean, she kind of has to in the fall because she's going to eat more berries and stuff, but she's going to eat what's available. But all she does is expand her eating window, okay? She starts eating for 20 hours a day, like most of us do now with our Western diet. And when you do that, you gain weight like crazy. You're going to become obese. You're going to have metabolic syndrome. If Holly stayed the way that she was on the right there for a couple of years, 4 or 5, Holly would begin to have heart issues. Holly would have metabolic syndrome. Holly would have all the issues associated with obesity. But she doesn't, right? So she goes into hibernation. She uses that fat. So, important concept. Now, another important concept is if you are like Holly the bear on the right over there, it's important also to know that Holly models her fat so that she can do what she's getting ready to do. And we will talk about that in a second. In fact, right now, that's a good lead in, modeling the fat. So this concept is super important. If we're going to intermittent fast and we're going to begin to sort of cut these windows down and probably get down to, one meal and a kind of a snacky grazy period, right? So that's probably where most of us will end up. If we're going to do that, then it's going to become much, much, much more important what we eat. And the reason for that is you need dietary fats, which we're going to go into detail about, and you need amino acids, and you need some cofactors like trace minerals and vitamins. If we eat a diverse sort of set of stuff throughout the day, then we're pretty likely just statistically to kind of get what we need, right? But if we begin to eat less, then we need to really understand what we're eating. And if we're eating one meal a day, then we got to understand, what's in that meal. And it's got to be far, far, far more intentional than we are now. We really have to understand the nutrients that we need, and we have to make sure that we're getting them, either supplementing for them or getting them in the meal that we have. Now, again, what should those nutrients be? And we'll walk through those because I've, backtracked this all, everything that we need. But this is the crap that's out there, and it's just unbelievable. I mean, the USDA food pyramid, start with bread and grains. Yeah, that's a good idea. That'll kill you. And then look at this over here, this healthy eating pyramid. Plant oils, including corn. Canola, corn oil is about the worst thing you can do to yourself. Okay, olives pretty good, peanuts pretty good, sunflower's okay, but you need to understand the fats associated with that. So again, we're gonna probably next slide talk about that. But there's so much crap out there. It's just unbelievable. Okay, so the other thing about it says alcohol in here, so I want to mention that. Again, if you're going to drink alcohol, alcohol is sugar. Alcohol is not going to help you. You know, if you've got to drink alcohol, it's better to drink red wine. If you're drinking red wine, drink drink in your eating window. Okay. If that's the most important thing in the world to you, then make sure your eating window is in your drinking window, okay? But just try to make sure that those are together, because drinking is like eating and again to your body, so it understands a calorie intake, and you're going to flip back to just like you ate a meal with zero nutrients in it if it's alcohol, right? So you get all the horrible side effects of eating with none of the benefits of the food if you drink alcohol, by itself. So don't do that. And again, we all go to a party sometime and kind of do that, but just be intentional about what you're doing and know what you're doing to your body when you do it. So what do you have to have? Fats. Our bodies absolutely have to have fats. We use fat to store energy. We use fat for chemical mediators. And it's really, so what types of fats do we need? We need saturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and polyunsaturated fats, which are omega-3 and omega-6s. Omega-3 and omega-6s are essential, meaning that you need to pay attention to them in your diet because your body can't make them. So it's only as good as what you ate today, all right? That your body doesn't store them. That kind of does. It stores them out of triglyceride. But you need to be conscious of your omega-3, omega-6 intake and ratio, all right? So what does this look like as far as kind of foods that you can eat? Oh, I spelled critical wrong there. I wonder if I can fix that. Let's see. Nah, we won't do that. Anyway, horrible to notice that in the middle of the thing. But again, so we get, let's say you eat meat, okay? When you eat that meat, you're going to get saturated fat by virtue of the meat. Generally, if you're eating nuts, if you're eating seeds, if you're eating plants, you're going to get enough saturated fat. So I'm not saying I don't want you to pay attention to that, but you probably are getting enough, okay? The thing that you need to pay attention to is you need to balance basically that saturated fat with the proper ratio of monounsaturated fat. So we should all eat more monounsaturated fats than we eat saturated fats. As far as your endocannabinoid signaling, we build a signaling molecule called anandamide from saturated fat. He's important. You have another more important one called oleomide, and you build him from monounsaturated fat. So again, if you're not eating any monounsaturated fat, you don't have any oleomide, unless you're pulling it off a triglyceride, for a very specific thing. But generally, you don't have any oleomide, and that's a pretty important signaling molecule. So the omega-3, though, I would say right now, just, and this is all about, you look out in the diet and say kind of what are we getting, what are we not? Well, we're definitely not getting enough omega-3s, and they are essential, okay? So you got to have them. We do get enough omega-6s, and omega-6s come from corn. So, if you're eating any kind of corn product, you're getting a lot of omega-6s, about 40 to 1, over omega-3s. So corn oil, corn products, again, pay attention to those. We overconsume those in our diet, and we underconsume omega-3s. And where are omega-3s? Chia seeds, and I would prefer that you get these from seeds rather than fish, okay? Seeds are everywhere on the earth and ubiquitous. If God would have just said, the only way to get omega-3s is through fish, then anybody who lived 50 miles from the ocean would be dead, right? So it's seeds is probably the proper way. And again, what type of seeds? Chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, all have omega-3 in them, but you need to also pay attention to the omega-6s in them and the saturated versus monounsaturated fats. So this is all about trying to balance that meal with the proper fats, and then we're going to talk about other things in a second, okay? But again, what should the ratios be? 50% monounsaturated of the fats that you eat, 50% should be monounsaturated, about 30% should be saturated, and the other 20% should be split between omega-3 and omega-6, and those should be in equal balance. I'm really lucky to have been able to correspond with this lady named Dr. Artemis Simopoulos. Artemis is the world expert on omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids and omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid balance. We've had some deep conversations about this. This is a big part of what's wrong with us health-wise, is that we're disbalanced in our omega-3 and omega-6 intake. It almost looks purposeful, folks. I mean, there's really kind of no other way to look at it. Omega-3s have been plucked from our diet, and omega-6s are just everywhere in our diet. So be aware of corn and corn products, because that's where they mainly come from. Up your omega-3s and up them in the form of chia seeds, hemp seeds, or flax seeds. And again, you can just, you can add these to a meal. You can eat these before a meal. You can put these on a protein bowl. They're easy to eat is the point. So it's easy to kind of supplement with them or make them a part of your meal. Now, what else do you have to have? You've got to have the 9 essential amino acids. And the essential amino acids are the ones over there on the right of the graphic. So histidine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, isoleucine, leucine, valine. So you've got to have those guys, and you've got to have those in, there's RDAs of those, so recommended daily allowances of those that we need to eat. Now, what's going to happen is if you look at these food pyramids, okay, so from back in the day, and you notice that, can I move this red X? Oh, yeah, good. So even in this pyramid right here, you'll notice that it says fish, poultry, or eggs 0 to 2 times daily, but it's telling you that you need to eat like meat or some protein source more than once a day, okay? And that's in order to get what? What is protein? Protein is nothing more than amino acids. So protein is just saturated fat and some other fats too, and amino acids together. That's all a steak is, okay? So if you're only eating protein once, so if we're intermittent fasting and we're only eating protein once during the day, then we have to make sure that we're getting enough of our essential amino acids. And I'm going to recommend that we supplement with these. So we're going to build, I will have an amino acid supplement, within 2 weeks that we'll have up on TrueMedics. But again, everybody should get a really good amino acid supplement, and you need to take it right before you take that meal, okay? 30 minutes maybe before, if it's in a, slow dissolve capsule or something. But if you're just taking kind of raw aminos, then 30 minutes or so before a meal. You want these guys sort of in front of your food, and you want them available. What happens is as you digest, these get picked up and they get moved into your inner cellular matrix, so that cells have it available to basically use to do whatever they're trying to do. So amino acids are kind of the raw material for the factory of the cell. I just did the chip talks on that last week. So if you want to know more about that, go listen to that chip talks. But the point is, again, and the other thing about protein sources, so protein sources generally are what? I mean, they're, meat, right? And with meat, you have an intermediary, that whatever that thing is that you're eating. So if it's a cow, again, that cow's meat and that meat's content of essential amino acids that you got to have is only as good as the feed that farmer gave to that cow. If the cow's wild, so if you're eating wild meat, great, you should be good. And again, I would encourage you to eat wild meat because that meat knows what to eat in order to survive, and it will have those same essential amino acids in its sort of body that you consume. But Farmer Joe doesn't know that. Again, Farmer Joe's buying his feed from XYZ Feed Company, and they may or may not have these 9 essentials in them, and that cow's not eating like it would, naturally. Let's say most cows don't. Again, you can buy grass-fed beef. Same with a chicken, same with a pig, okay? So if you get those animals wild, again, they're going to be way more likely to contain all of the 9 essential amino acids in kind of the proportion you need them. If they're fed supplements, again, probably the same thing that's happening there. These things have been removed from our food supply to make you sick, to be honest. And that's probably happening, in the animals too. So I would really like to see you supplement for these, and that way there's just no question. I mean, supplement and then eat whatever kind of meat you want. It really doesn't matter where that meat came from. We need to be a little more intentional about it. But, at least you're getting what you need, and you don't have to rely on that meat source, that protein source, to give you these 9 essentials. And again, you can do this on your own as you're building your own meal plans. Just make sure that you're getting these. But if you got a chart and you're eating a hamburger, don't rely on that chart to be right about that beef that you're eating, because it may or may not be right. You understand what I'm saying? Hopefully you guys get it. And this is super important too. If you're going to, okay, so next slide. Perfect. So again, what about carbs? So again, carbs would be fruits and vegetables. And what I was going to say is if you're going to just go on a juice diet, you absolutely need to be aware of aminos, and because juice is generally just fruits and vegetables, sort of blended up, right? And so that's good. That's got some good, healthy stuff in it. But what is that? Well, it's not a lot of dietary fat, and it's not amino acids. It does have a lot of sugar in it. And we don't think of fruit and, celery as sugar, but it is, okay? It's sugar to your body. It doesn't have very much fat in it. That's what you really, really need. It doesn't have any amino acids, hardly. I mean, it's got some in it, but not all of them. And those are the raw materials you need for your factories. It's got some fiber in it, and that's good for you. And you do need a little bit of glucose, but I would not base my one meal or my core kind of meal plan on juice, okay? Juice is a good supplement, and juice, like if you're doing let's say you're doing an 8-hour, 8-hour intermittent fast or a 6-hour intermittent fast, juice is a good way to kind of break your fast or start the meal, because it's going to give you a lot of energy. And it's going to give you energy until you kind of get to that big meal. And that big meal, though, should make you feel sleepy. I mean, and that's kind of what the result of eating a big meal should be. I mean, we're using all our energy to focus on that instead of doing other things, right? It's kind of like Thanksgiving. So, this is super important, though. I mean, this is the most probably important thing that I have to tell you in this entire presentation. Because a lot of us, certainly if we're trying to lose weight, we think that, okay, well, I'm just going to go to healthy carbs and I'm just going to do fruits and celery and stuff, right? And I'm going to lose weight like crazy. No, you'll gain weight because it's sugar, okay? So the important things are essential fatty acids and amino acids. Fiber is important, glucose is important, but again, it's not as important as the other two. Put it this way, on a triglyceride, the way your body wants to store energy for future use, you have 3 fatty acids bound with 1 sugar backbone. So 3 to 1, I think is a pretty good ratio, maybe, of fats to sugars, because that's kind of your natural, storage ratio. But anyway, so be advised. Again, if you're juicing's fine. Juicing's great. Juicing's healthy. We're making juice right here where we live at Neighborly Nutrition, and we're promoting juice, but you need to understand kind of what juice is, and that it is not, NOT, not a complete meal. Now, you can add aminos to juice, right? So you can just, put a little amino acid supplement in your juice, and now we're talking. So, and a little bit of a fat supplement in there too, a little protein supplement maybe, and now you got it all, okay? So, I'm not saying don't juice. I'm just saying if you're just going to do carbs, if you're just going to do fruits, if you're just going to do celery and stuff like that, then you need other stuff. Aminos and fats, you gotta have them, or you will suffer. You'll gain weight, you'll become sick, your immune system won't work, things will fall off. It's not a good situation. Okay, what else do you have to have? So now we're getting a little bit into the weeds, but again, still important to talk about. So we do need vitamins and we do need trace minerals. Again, the less you eat and the less frequently you eat, statistically, the less, you're going to hit the mark and kind of get some of these in your diet. So you do need to be advised. So right now, I'm going to say we need all the vitamins, A, B, C, D, E, and K. I kind of don't think we do. I mean, I think we make most of these things inside of us. But again, go ahead and get that supplement, that good vitamin supplement. And, we need to be taking that. We definitely do need salt, okay? So you don't need a lot of salt, but you just, this whole thing about salt and salt will affect your blood pressure. So if your blood pressure is low, eat more salt. If your blood pressure is super high, try to eat less salt. But we all need to eat salt, right? So it's it's an antibacterial. It helps us guard against bacteria. So, kind of what we got told out there about salt, in my lifetime might have been a little BS. So we need some salt. The other thing we need are trace minerals, and I'd find you a good trace mineral supplement. Again, we'll be building some of this stuff over the next couple of months, so you might just watch for us to do that. But right now, I'm kind of liking zeolites, which are kind of cool little guys. So we'll have something along these lines that, has all this stuff together. But for you right now, if you're intermittent fasting, you're going to need some kind of a trace mineral supplement. You're going to you need to watch your salt, make sure you're eating enough salt, and then make sure that you're getting the vitamins, okay? So what did we just talk about? We have to have omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in balance. And if I don't say in balance, Dr. Simopoulos will come get me. But they have to be in balance, and we can be a little off, like omega-3 to omega-6, 1-to-1. We can go omega-3 to omega-6 1-to-4, and that's okay. Right now we're at 1-to-20, so that's a problem, an issue. So just writing this a little wrong will help a lot. We've got to have amino acids, so you've got to have the 9 essentials. Again, I'm recommending that you just go ahead and supplement for these, and again, you can do that in a juice or put it in whatever. We do need some carbs, but minimize your carbs. They're not as important as the other two things. They're more important for the fiber. And again, you can get a fiber supplement. And you need a little bit of glucose, but not a lot. All right. And then you need some trace minerals and vitamins. Okay. So we are talking about some things that we will have to supplement for that are pretty important. And if we don't do this, and we'll talk about this in a second, but if we don't do this, if we don't supplement into our fasting, then again, we could hurt ourselves with fasting. And that's what we don't want to do, right? So if we're doing intermittent fasting, we want to get healthier, not sicker. And we will, absolutely. But we have to know the right and proper inputs. Now, let's talk about if you're going to go on a fast, okay? If you're going to go on a real long, let's say you're going to go on a week fast, 1 week long, not a non-strengthened fast, a 1 week week long fast. So if you're going to go on a 1 week long fast, you need to begin to prepare your body a little bit. And I would say as long as you're going to fast, you need to go that long in either an intermittent fast or in just a proper eating situation, meaning every meal you need to pay attention to the omega-3 versus omega-6 ratio. You need to make sure that that's consistent and that you're doing that consistently. This will begin to model your fat. And this is what a bear does. And this is why a bear can kind of go up and down in weight and still be healthy, is a bear understands how to model their fat. And they eat a lot more omega-3 than they eat omega-6, usually by virtue of the salmon that they eat. But they know how to run this ratio and model their fat where they can, really kind of go up and down and not it be, harmful to them. You got to have aminos, and I would, if you're going to go on let's say a week-long fast, then you need to go at least a week with eating the proper aminos and making sure that you're really getting these in your body, making sure that your body is building kind of what you'll need to live off of, when you fast. Again, carbs are not that important, guys. We need them for fiber. We need them for glucose. That's about it. We have plenty of glucose in our diet. We don't have enough fiber though, so again, they are good for fiber. And then you have to have these trace elements and vitamins. But I would at least, if you're going to fast for a week, at least spend a week, building up your body to go on a week-long fast. If you're going to fast for longer than that, then definitely spend more time consciously building up yourself. Now, if you have a very severe disease like cancer, so again, I've done some chip talks on cancer. You can go back and listen to those and about how fasting helps with cancer and the reasons why. But if you're super duper sick, and again, if you have terminal cancer, again, I'm going to just recommend that you fast, and we're going to kind of go on a journey together. But in a perfect world, you sort of prepare yourself a little bit, for that fast. But fasting, again, is a way to, 48 hours, 48 hours past your last meal, let's just put it that way. First of all, 5 hours past as to cancer, 5 hours past your last meal, your body will turn on 2 cancer defenses that are off when you eat, okay? And for 5 hours after you eat, 2. So one's called autophagy, Pac-Man, that goes out and cleans up mutated cells. The other one is called P53, and he's a protein, that will directly kill cancer, all right? The other thing that happens is, so that happens 5 hours from your last meal. 24 hours past your last meal, you begin to get rid of all the circulating glucose, and it may take 24 up to 48 hours to get rid of all your circulating glucose, meaning the glucose that's between cells, the glucose that's in your blood, the glucose that's in your lymph. So for all that to kind of go away, and you clean yourself out finally, 24 to 48 hours. And what happens then is you have needs for, let's say, water-soluble fuel. And glucose is a water-soluble fuel. Your brain likes to run on water-soluble fuel, liver, kidneys. So they'll run on glucose, but after 48 hours, it's gone. So what do they run on? They run on something called ketones, which is a sugary fat. And again, you start making ketones, and ketones start circulating all through our body after 48 hours, and our brain starts running on ketones. Now, you can talk to people who fast, and they'll tell you, you feel that when that happens. Your liver starts running on ketones. It gets better and more efficient. Your kidneys start running on ketones. It gets better and more efficient. But the great thing about ketones is cancer can't eat a ketone. Okay? So, and there are certain cancers that you need to be careful of because they'll eat amino acids and when you start pushing buttons and stuff. So we need to be careful and conscious of what kind of cancer it is. But again, it's always good. Cancer can't eat a ketone. So if you get all the glucose out of your system, which happens after 48 hours, your cancer starts to starve. Now, it may try to eat other things that we need to guard against, then you need to be aware of that, but your cancer will start to starve, which is a very, very good thing, and that's what chemo kind of does, is it starves cancer. All right, so good sources for what we need. Nuts, seeds, and beans, okay? There's something to this. If you have to kill something, maybe we shouldn't put it in us. And I'm just sort of, going from what I see, and I'd probably eat a hamburger tonight, so I like my meat, but I'm just telling you what I'm observing is that it looks like, if you have to kill the thing, and some things are seasonal anyway, you kind of have to kill them at the end of a cycle, right? Like broccoli and, stuff like that. So that's not really killing it, it's just harvesting it. But if you have to cut down a tree or you have to, it just doesn't look like that works, right? The healthiest things that we can get are stuff that just grows every year all the time. Nuts, seeds, and beans, all right? Satisfy yourself, again, but realize that there's a lot of crap out there and satisfy yourself as to essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6. Satisfy yourself as to essential fatty acids, as to amino acids, and as to carbs, they have some carbs and certainly fiber. So nuts and seeds have a lot of fiber. And then also to trace elements and vitamins. Okay? Do your own homework. Have your own fun. But you're going to learn what I learned. These guys are it. They're the shiz. They're what we want to be eating. So, we need to begin to transition our meals over time to look at more nuts, seeds, and beans because that appears to be kind of the right natural food for us. And it gives us everything that we need, which is the big thing. Or we supplement, eat what you want and supplement. But that's kind of what got us here, right? So it's kind of what got us in this problem that we're in. Is our opulence and our corpulence and in our excess, right, and our laziness. So we need to at least understand what's going on here and be intentional if we get off the mark. The last thing again is if you guys aren't seeing this already, I mean, super important our circadian rhythms and how those play a role in kind of how our body works, in when we need to eat, in kind of how our immune system works, all of it, right? So we do this wonderful dance every day associated with the sun. You can take that where you want, but that fits into almost any religion. And the other thing that fits into almost any religion is fasting. So again, it appears that we had this system of natural medicine, for a long time that has to do with nature and has to do with fasting. But the sun plays a way bigger role in who we are and who we think we are than we know. And all of that's coming, boys and girls. I could tell you just wouldn't believe me right now. So we'll get there. We'll build the basis, and that's what we're doing throughout these chip talks is really just we're building our knowledge base, right? So I'm taking you guys on the journey that I'm on and have been on for a while. But you need pieces and you need sort of bricks and mortar in order to, build the second story, right? Second story is pretty cool, but we'll get there. We're getting there. So hope you've enjoyed it today. If you have questions, you can always leave those in the thread. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, ask. You'll be with one other person who's asked a question on a Chip Talks. And I know what happens to these, by the way. My stuff is so throttled, but it won't be forever. And again, I'm just trying to build a knowledge base for you guys. I'm, building you a library that you can go back and look at in the future, right? So, hi from the future. This is our fasting deep dive. Hope things are better than they were back here in February of 2023, where we've almost got World War III with China and Russia out there. So hopefully we'll get past that, and there'll be people around to watch this. Anyway, being fun. So you guys have a good weekend. We'll see you next Friday with another riveting and exciting Chip Talks. See you guys.